That's the latest. I'm Kat Suave.
The conversation starts here with expert guests from around the Emirates. Daybreak with Vivek Sanil and Muriel Desar. Talk 100.3.
9 बज गए हैं एंड एवरी फ्राइडे या मंडेज एंड फ्राइडेज हमारे साथ टैली सॉल्यूशन से टैली कंप्लायंस मेस्त्रोज आते हैं और हमारे साथ आज है CA गिरीश चंद जी और उनसे हम बात करेंगे अबाउट कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स. नाउ ही इज अ सीनियर पार्टनर एट MCA Gulf. He heads the MCA Gulf compliance practice covering corporate tax, VAT, ESR, AML, UBO across UAE, Bahrain, Oman and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So आज हम बात कर रहे हैं about a lot of different things. So let's first welcome Mr. Girish Chand ji. Girish ji, a pleasure to speak to you this morning. Thank you so much for coming to our studios.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on
100.3
FM.
Right. So Friday mornings, is it quite busy for you because Abu Dhabi and Sharjah are quite okay as of now?
Yeah, Friday. And in fact, this is the time to actually be in the office. But so today I made a different day.
You've taken a different route. You come here to obviously discuss about tax. You come here to discuss about the compliance and so much more. If you could just give us a rundown of what can people expect in our conversation today.
So primarily what you see is that the landscape of compliance is changing in this region. Okay. So we saw in 2018 the VAT being introduced. Okay. Subsequently, we had the economic substance. Okay, and the UBO related regulations, and the big bang taxation, which is the direct taxation.
Right.
That's something which is coming now in the form of the corporate tax. Right. So what I will be covering is a provision which generally people are not aware, right? Which is GAR, which is referred to as the General Anti-Abuse Rule.
All right. So general
Anti-abuse rule. It's the first time I'm hearing about it, listening.
Were you an account student?
Yes, I was, but I have never heard of this.
उसके बाद तो कुछ याद ही नहीं है अकाउंट्स में क्या किया.
उसके बाद तो
Debit what comes in, credit what goes out.
उतना ही पता है.
Knowledge also goes out after getting marks.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit about the rule that you're mentioning.
So what has happened is that in this particular, we have the corporate tax law, which was introduced on 9th of December 2022. Okay, in that there is a very innocuous provision, Article 50, which talks about the General Anti-Abuse Rule. Okay. Very simply put, what it means is that if you are doing any kind of structuring, which the basic objective is to obtain a corporate tax advantage.
Okay.
Right? So that would be basically disregarded.
Okay.
Right? So in short, if you were to put in that, generally people will think that, corporate tax is coming in. So I start making changes.
Correct.
So tax planning अलग होता है, evasion is different, anti-abuse is also different.
Yeah, so it will be more in the nature of something which is preventing tax evasion.
Okay.
So
yeah, so I mean, if you could talk to us further on in which cases is anti-abuse rule. I mean, in what cases would it be applied more, and how can companies learn more about it, or even individuals learn about it more?
So primarily, where, like I mentioned, if there is any transaction which is considered without any valid commercial kind of rationale, and the only objective which you are having as far as the transaction is concerned is to obtain a corporate tax advantage, then in those cases is where they could invoke the GAR provisions.
Okay, so this will apply after you've submitted, after you've filed for the returns, or is it?
Yeah, so interestingly, when you look at it, they have basically said that GAR provisions are applicable primarily from the date the decree law was issued.
Oh, nice.
So the decree law was issued in October, so and it was published, right? So effectively, GAR is applicable as of now.
Nice.
Okay.
So now when the companies structure and they do the tax planning, or planning to evade. So whatever they're trying to do, and then this rule will be applied. So why has this come into place in the first place? What are those mispractices which people are adopting to?
So generally, when you look at it, people are always motivated to kind of save tax. Okay, so
Motivated to save taxes.
No, because everybody wants to save that extra money. So, I understand.
So there is a difference between tax efficiency and possibly tax evasion.
Okay.
Right, and primarily when you look at this, so any kind of changes, I think the common one, when you look at today, basically the corporate tax law is effective for financial year after 1st June 2023.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So what it means is that if somebody is having a financial year of Jan to December, right, the first year they'll be liable is from 1st Jan 2024. Okay. So now I think people will always think of Indian ways, and maybe where they say that they possibly want to defer their financial year, okay, and where they might go in for change of the financial year.
Right.
Jan to December is still a common.
Yeah, it's still better
Right.
that way, because
Yeah.
if they have it, let's say June to July, June to May, then they will come
The
under
six-
this year, right?
Yeah, the 6 months of this year would be applicable. Right now, if you basically are looking at changing your financial year, right now, changing the financial year, without a proper commercial rationale, right? So this is something which could come under the GAR implications.
Nice. There are a lot of companies who don't have books of accounts as
Correct.
well. They can choose now what year they want, financial year.
So very good question. I think the element here is that the financial year, if you look at it, generally is governed by your memorandum of association.
Okay.
If in your MOA,
Uh-huh.
it is already specified. Okay, so that becomes your financial year. A lot of the people are not aware because they get their MOA done from possibly a typing center,
Correct.
and some of them have standard formats.
Okay.
So the cases where you're saying that they have not done accounting, possibly they first need to look at their MOA to understand that what is there, as it already been specified.
Correct.
If in case it is not specified, possibly they could look at it in terms of the choice of the year. Obviously the other part of it is when are their trade licenses expiring. So these are all factors which they need to consider.
So when you're talking about the anti-abuse rules, what is it in for the employers of the company? I mean, people who own the company. I mean, what do they need to bear in mind where this is concerned?
Yeah, so like I said, where effectively they are doing any actions. Currently, we are talking of structuring, because I think everybody is kind of preparing for the corporate tax, which would be applicable most of the cases from 1st Jan 2024.
Right.
Correct.
So if they are basically looking at any kind of structuring, okay, so then they need to be aware that the structuring could be in the form of basically where we talk about non-payment, short payment of corporate tax. Okay, so any kind of things that they are doing where there is a deferment, okay, where there is a reduction, right, of the corporate tax payable, okay, and the purpose does not have any commercial rationale, right. In those cases, they have to be careful as to looking at those changes.
And what are the fines that we talking about? What are the repercussions we're looking at?
So first repercussion which would happen is that whatever they do, okay, primarily wherever the benefits they have taken,
Right.
that would be rolled back. Okay, so generally what tends to happen is that suppose there is a tax payable of 100,000 dirhams,
Correct.
right? So if and when that is discovered, and again the time frame is something which I'll talk about little later, right? So if and when it is discovered in that particular tax year, the 100,000 would be reversed back. Okay, so maybe they have gained an advantage of 100,000. That would be reversed back.
Right.
Okay, so for example, if the tax payable after they doing that was 100,000, okay, so effectively that would mean that for that year they would need to pay 200,000 as the tax. Okay,
So it's double the amount.
no, because they took that advantage, that is
Right,
reversed back.
right.
And the moment that is reversed back, what would happen is that, and suppose if it is discovered after a few years, right? So what would happen is that you would also be liable for possibly the interest payment, because you have not paid the 200,000 in that year.
So interest also.
In the interest on that particular thing, because the delayed payment, it would be considered as a delayed payment for that assessment year.
Right.
So that's something that you will have to pay, and there could be additional penalties also.
Right. So when we're talking about corporate tax, we're talking about the anti-abuse rules and all the other taxes that are coming into play, and where the government is concerned. People immediately, the public mind, person who owns a business is thinking, how do I get out of it? This was exactly the first point that you mentioned. How do we get out of this? Because it's that extra amount that is going off our kitty, right? But what people don't realize is the repercussions that they would be imposed with, and the problems they could get in. Could also licenses be revoked if probably push comes to shove?
I think that is basically possibly in an extreme case.
Right.
Okay. They initially kind of basically they say rap on the knuckle. Okay. Effectively in the form of
in schools we used to get so much.
Yeah. But this is a rap on your basically in terms of your bank balances. Right. So they tend to do that, is where effectively it will be in the form of fines and penalties. I think in extreme cases possibly, and where you have multiple cases of basically this thing happening, maybe the license will also be revoked.
Right. So GAAR, anti-abuse rule, one is when you're trying to change your financial year. What are the other things that will come under the perspective?
So primarily, even if you let me take an example here. Now when you talk about free zones, okay, generally the expectation is when you talk about free zones, they would for the income that what is referred to in the law as a qualifying income, right, that would be subject to a 0%. Okay. So now effectively, if somebody decides that I want to kind of basically take my business to a free zone from the mainland, right, now that again is basically, and if the sole purpose is again to save from tax, the perspective of the saving the tax, right, so that's something that they will have to basically watch for. There could be other examples, like if somebody is actually conducting a business and he decides that tomorrow I form 3 companies, okay, because there is a threshold limit of,
and I can make a tax group, and then
not really. The tax group is one part. Tax group has its conditions, so as long as you fulfill the conditions, you can form a tax group. But if somebody has one entity and says that, and that one entity is having a net income of 1 million, and tomorrow he kind of starts thinking that maybe I form 3 entities,
right,
okay, and bring it below the limit of 375,000 is the income limit.
Right.
So I form 3 entities and bring it below that limit, right? So, and he's conducting that same business, okay. So that's something which can also be, okay. So that's something which can also be, basically be considered as an abuse.
Right. So there are so many things that, we can think of to actually save tax and not be a part of the thing. But the rule is applied in October 2022 and it applies from there. The GAAR rule applies from October 2022. Right?
Yeah.
So let's move on to other discussions, whether you can determine whether anti-abuse rule will apply to particular transaction or an arrangement. Lekin quickly ek stock update and we'll be back.
The countdown is on as the finale of the DP World IoT20 gets near. Watch the action live as the Gulf Giants, Desert Vipers, My Emirates and Dubai Capitals move into the qualifiers. Top international superstars set the pace with high-octane qualifiers on the 8th to the 10th and the finals on the 12th of February. Plus, a fun-filled family carnival and, of course, the best cricket action at the Dubai International Stadium. Tickets from 20 dirhams and free entry for the kids. Don't miss the DP World IoT20 finale. Book now at tickets.ilt20.ae.
This is Talk 100.3. The Journal on Daybreak. The latest share market, stock market news and updates on Talk 100.3.
इंडिया यूएई और सऊदी मार्केट्स देखते हैं. निफ्टी 50 is down by 0.26%, trading at 17,847.85. Bank Nifty is up by 0.25%, trading at 41,652.45. Sensex is down by 0.34%, trading at 60,597. ADX is up by 0.03%, trading at 10,010.64. DFM is up by 0.84%, trading at 3,445.70, and Tadawul is down by 0.91%, trading at 10,412.160.
Let's take a closer look at the US stock markets. The US stock markets are seeing a downfall for the day. Dow Jones down by 0.73%, currently trading at 33,699.88. Also S&P 500 down by 0.88%, trading at 4,081.50. Nasdaq also down by 1.02%, trading at 11,789.58. Russell, on the other hand, has also lost considerably, down by 1.40%, trading at 1,915.34. Wix, on the other hand, has gained 5.50%, trading at 20.71. And those were the updates for the US stock markets.
When I wake up here. This is Daybreak with Vivek Sanil and Muriel Desar. Talk 100.3.
Tally Solutions every Mondays and Fridays 9 से 10 के बीच में they bring to us Tally compliance maestros, and we have a maestro in our studio, CA Girish Chand ji. Pleasure to speak to you again and to know more about GAR as well. So we were discussing about the anti-abuse rule, and how do we determine whether anti-abuse rule will apply to particular transaction or an arrangement?
Okay, maybe I can also, since you mentioned about the compliance maestro, might be give a little bit of background.
Okay.
Right. Primarily, Tally has created this, kind of a entire program called Compliance Maestros.
Okay.
Where I think the objective is to kind of basically spread the knowledge and the awareness as far as whatever any new regulations come in place.
Correct.
Okay, so they started it with the VAT, and now they are basically on to the corporate tax. So there is a team of 10 to 15 experts, and I've been fortunate to be chosen as one of those experts as such. Yeah.
Nice.
So coming back to in terms of the, you were talking about the arrangement as such. What kind of arrangements are
included?
Yeah, so primarily what we talk in this one is that any kind of arrangement which has an impact, which basically is providing the, an advantage to the taxpayer. Okay. Which is not within the, the laws or the rules that are framed.
So the intention, basically, whether it is, are you doing something just to save tax, just to evade tax? It is clearly visible because it will not come under the logic of the law.
Right.
Yeah. So one element of it, what tends to happen is that, in all fairness, this is little subjective.
Okay. Here comes the
So-
subjective angle. Kahani mein twist.
So it is little subjective because, could be that when I look at it, okay, there could be an element of basically justifying it.
Okay.
Right, like they say, we have all lawyers. Okay, ultimately the judge in that case is the tax authority.
Right.
Right, for them to view it and see yes, is this transaction having any kind of a commercial rationale, right, or not, or it is purely from the perspective of kind of obtaining a advantage as such, right? So what it would mean is that the entities, whenever they are doing any kind of structuring, right, first is that to understand and see, is there an element of GAR coming into play, right?
Okay.
And the other part of it is that they need to maintain the proper documentation, right, relating to the transaction, the rationale for the transaction, right? Because these things could come about not today. They could come about 2 years, 3 years,
Right.
5 years down the line.
This is what
where
I
it
was
could be
asking
questioned.
too. Yeah, in the first place, that
But
does
are
this
any industries exempted from,
charity,
from the
government,
and what are they?
non-profit?
What about the trading industries? For example, your crypto trading industries, where you can trade for.
Yeah. So if you are referring to from the perspective of corporate tax, practically it is only where it is mentioned as exempt, right? The entities which are mentioned as exempt, only they are exempt as such, right? So which are largely around, basically the government bodies. Again, the government bodies, we have to remember that they are basically bodies which are doing sovereign activities.
Correct.
If the government bodies are doing, a lot of the government bodies are also doing business transactions, commercial activities, right?
So they are not exempted.
They are not exempted. In fact, there could be a government entity which would do a sovereign activity and which might also do a commercial activity.
For example, Salik?
Salik could be an example, right? So we'll have to see whether, Salik would be considered. I think Salik would be primarily in the domain of
commercial,
sovereign activity also, because you don't have
give and take happening.
Right.
No, also it is not today that any other entity can do that activity.
Correct.
Right. So they're whole and soul. Yeah, they're whole and soul.
Yeah, so maybe that will qualify as a sovereign activity. But what I was saying is that if a government entity is doing the sovereign activity and as well as the commercial activity, then they would have to maintain that clarity, and it is right up to the net income to segregate between what is a sovereign activity and what is the income generated from sovereign activity and what is the income generated from business activities.
Right. So let's talk about small time companies, or let's talk about companies in general. What according to you feel that they falter in at most, and eventually it leads into a massive it just snowballs into something else for them? Because I'm sure because you're an expert in your field, you'd have an idea as to what companies and where do they actually falter at in the start, so that you can at least inform people listening to us right now to avoid those mistakes.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have seen this right from the VAT days, and VAT was a case where practically everybody were subject to VAT, right? Because the threshold limit was only 100,000 on the turnover basis.
Okay.
Right. I think the first thing is the awareness of the law. Right. I think a lot of the people were not aware that they would have to register for VAT.
Correct.
Okay. And in the due course, might be inspections, maybe doing renewals. Right. These all come up, and whenever you act on it after a certain period in time, right, the only thing that you get is that the fines and penalties, and sometimes it is not worth the effort that you have done to kind of save those small, like you're saying, you want to save some small money, but the fines and penalties are much higher. Now, when you come to the corporate tax perspective, right, now here, when you talk of small entities, okay, the first thing that they need to do is primarily their books of accounts, right?
Right.
So they need to now get the discipline of maintaining the books of accounts, because the corporate tax is something which is basically applicable on your net income.
Correct.
Right. So they need to maintain the books of accounts. Obviously, audit is currently not mandatory, even in where you talk the corporate tax law, but it might be a good idea to get them audited, because whenever you are presenting something to the tax authorities, right, currently all the mode is self-assessment as such, but it always helps to get an independent kind of certification done on your books of accounts. So that's something that they need to consider. Also, they need to be aware of, when you take the small entities, the distinction between the owner and the company is blurred.
Correct.
Okay. So they think whatever is their expense is the expense of the company. Okay. So that is something that they need to now, because obviously, when you take whatever the expenses, that has to be related to your business.
Right.
Okay, you decide today that I have an expensive meal and say that, because I did a good job in office.
No, but that happens a lot with family-run businesses, that they put everything onto the, business. So that is also another question that I wanted to ask you. With family-run businesses, for them, bookkeeping, is not something that is a common for them, because it's a family run business.
Correct.
So how do you regulate those businesses? And if they fall under the ambit of the corporate tax, now it's getting difficult for them as well. So what would you suggest to them?
So I think they first need to establish that, the business and the person is separate. Okay. So they need to understand what is your personal expenses, right? And in fact, when you talk of corporate tax, there are very clear rules about your salary, right? You can't decide yourself in saying that, fine, the profit is so much, I decide to give myself a salary of so much, right? Because there are rules governing that from a transfer pricing perspective.
Right.
Okay, when you look at your expenses, right, your house expenses or your personal expenses have to be different from your business expenses.
Correct,
Yeah, so you can't run your house from the business expenses. Yeah, so that has to be separated, because what will happen is that if you are putting those into your, basically your calculations, and you say, no, my net income is so much only because I've taken all the personal expenses. When it comes to the taxable profit, it is different from your accounting profit.
Right.
At least with the accounting profit, possibly if the auditors are good with you, or they decide, they let you go, right? You can possibly show that in the expense. But when it comes to the taxable profit, you basically need to back out all those personal expenses, because the tax authority is not going to allow you to claim personal expenses in your business.
Right. As we speak, एक अच्छा thought आया कि this could actually mean कि employee benefits जो है ना, it will slowly start increasing is what I feel, because if that could be included in the expenses and then reduce your profit, is that a good idea that I'm thinking about, or it's too much?
It's a wishful thinking.
No,
so everything has to be done within a boundary.
Right. For example, you give these food vouchers, you give these, free lunch to your employees, and you include that in your proper expense because this is the welfare that you're doing. Yeah,
so that's an interesting element, because when we talk about VAT, okay, so what happened was these kind of additional, they said that which is normal, right? So normal is that, and they basically, largely it is tea, coffee and things.
Okay.
But if you decide that every day, I will order food for the employees from Taj, right? So that might not really, gel well, because that is not what is a normal.
Gazebo is okay, Taj is not okay.
So
even gazebo may not be okay.
So I think if Vivek runs a firm, he'll definitely be doing this.
मैं तो employees का हूँ
अच्छा.
News का time. You have any questions? 0586861000. Give us a call 800-81003. This is brought to you by Tally Solutions. TallySolutions.com पे log on कीजिए for more.
This is Talk 100.3.
Rescue workers are making a final push to find survivors of the earthquakes that have destroyed parts of Turkey and Syria. More than 20,000 people are known to have died, while thousands more remain unaccounted for. British teams are helping with relief efforts in freezing temperatures. Kieran Barnes is from the Mercy Corps, a humanitarian organisation which has volunteers in northwestern Syria.
Having supplies for the coming days and weeks is going to be critical.
Ryder is now in the lead of the general classification and has been awarded the race's first ever red jersey and green jersey. The opening Dubai stage featured 109 km of riding on the most flat route, departing from Port Rashid and culminating with a bunch of sprint at Dubai Harbour. Speaking second after the finish, Cool said it was an amazing feeling to be first ever winner of the UAE women, and I still can't believe it. I trained really hard for the race, and to produce a nice sprint was incredible. And that's all from the sports desk on Talk 100.3.
Wake me up in the morning. Daybreak with Vivek Sanil and Muriel Desar.
You know everything about me.
Talk 100.3.
Tally Solutions bring to you Tally Compliance Maestros every Mondays and Fridays 9 से 10 के बीच में. हमारे साथ CA Girish Chand ji, and he's sharing a lot of knowledge about GAR, about anti-abuse rule. So we were discussing, is there any threshold, corporate tax advantage threshold for application of anti-abuse rule, Girish ji?
Yeah, that's a good question. So right now, as far as UAE is concerned, they have not defined any kind of threshold.
Okay.
But generally in countries, for example in India, the threshold is INR 3 crores. Okay. So what has happened is, currently if you look at the legislation as far as corporate tax is concerned, only the law has come out. So I refer to as saying that when you're building a building, right? So right now the structure is kind of put in. Right now the interiors and all have to be coming in, and this will come in the form of cabinet decisions.
And the cabinet decisions, as of now, we saw that there were some updates as well. There are some companies who already got invitations, and there are a lot of companies yet to register as well. The first step is registration, right?
Yeah.
So when do you think will all this come? Because it's already February.
That's a good question. See, when you talk about registration, what they have done is that they have basically said that you can register, before your first return filing.
Okay.
So they're giving you a lot of flexibility on registration.
Okay.
So for example, if you take somebody who's having Jan to December as a year,
Right.
so their registration is actually due by September 2025.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So there is no, I would say that people should not rush in for registration.
Okay.
I think what they need to do is that first kind of evaluate the impact that corporate tax is going to have. Okay, decide on what they want to do. For example, if you have multi-companies as such, right, then you might also want to explore that, do you want to form a tax group? Right? So these kind of impact assessments and stuff are done. And when you have, kind of evaluated, what is the impact that corporate tax is going to do, what kind of structuring you want to put in place, I think that is the time you kind of might want to go in for the registration.
So what are the implications in case Federal Tax Authority invokes the anti-abuse rule? So the implications we talked about are the fines that you had mentioned earlier?
Yeah. So more importantly is that they roll back, right? So if you have claimed any exemption or deduction, right, that would be disallowed, right? Basically, if you have, any kind of payments which you have done and which are not in line, so those would be kind of reversed back. Okay. Also, you're basically, in nutshell, whatever benefits you have derived, that would have to be rolled back. Okay. And from the implications, moment when there is a rollback happening, the related penalty or interest, these all will come into play. And definitely there is, what they say is that whatever advantage you're trying to seek, right, the cost of that could be much higher than that.
So
it's a very sweet way of saying it. Yeah.
But is GAR subject to misuse by tax authorities?
I think this is generally, when you look at it, both the sides have to justify, right? So when you are doing some, basically some changes, right, like I mentioned earlier, that you would have to basically first put the rationale, put the documentation. Similarly, when you talk about the tax authorities, they would basically put up saying that, okay, this is what we think that possibly GAR is applicable. Okay. However, they have to put in their justifications.
Right.
And also there is an element where basically the taxpayer would have an opportunity in terms of putting his perspective. Right. And what we have to remember is that generally where there is dispute between the taxpayer and the tax authority, there is a defined process where it would be first internally within the tax authority, maybe then move on to the next level where it will be with one independent, kind of, juridical person, and finally it goes to the courts.
Right.
Now, the thing is that, a lot of people have started understanding the subject even better, slowly, but there are a lot of important things that will come up in the future as well, right? So what are you predicting in terms of, corporate tax? What are the things that need to be established as soon as possible so that people are prepared?
So largely, I think, like we mentioned, is that if your accounting is not robust, start getting into the accounting part of it. Okay. Now, when you talk about accounting, obviously, softwares like Tally and they can help, because effectively Tally during the VAT days also, right, they were one of the first in terms of bringing in the changes which was required. Okay. Similarly, we expect them that they have already experienced with the tax laws or corporate tax in other parts of the world. So we expect that they would also come up with solutions as far as the corporate tax. See, one of the things is today when you look at any accounting softwares, it gives you the trial balance, profit and loss and all.
Right.
Now it is giving you the accounting profit. Okay, now you need to move from the accounting profit to the taxable profit. And that is where, accounting softwares can help, because what happens is that if you were to try and do it after the year is over, you are actually sifting through, maybe thousands, maybe 10,000 transactions to see which are the transactions which might be disallowed under corporate tax. But if, in your accounting software, you are able to capture those, analysis codes and stuff, then it's much easy to move from an accounting profit to a taxable profit.
Right.
Okay, so that is one part of it, like we said. And other is that look carefully at all related party transactions, right? So wherever there are, sale purchases from related party, there is something called as transfer pricing.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
But can you also be penalized after, you were mentioning about transactions, and I could have all the documents supporting those transactions, correct? But can I also be penalized if the authorities think that the documents are not in line with their expectations, or don't fall in accordance with, whatever is being served at the table, basically? Can I be penalized for it as well?
Yeah, that's a possibility. Okay, that could happen. Okay, but I think if you have strong grounds and which are backed by the tax law provisions, right, then it is an element of how you kind of defend your position.
Right.
And also, we were also mentioning that a lot of big celebrities come here, artists come here. They will also be under the ambit of corporate tax, right? Because they're earning income due to a business here in UAE. So even they will be covered under this, right?
Yeah, so there is something which is called as a, UAE sourced income. Okay.
Okay.
So if they are coming under the gambit of that UAE sourced income, right? So then there is a possibility that, people who are outside also, because if you look at the definition of a taxable person, it includes non-residents also.
Right. A lot of these celebrities do this, right? I mean, they say that this person has gifted me a Ferrari, but technically they have brought it, from a different source, just to avoid paying that additional tax. So,
this is something which will always be, within the realm. People always come up with ingenuine ways.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes they can get lucky. But luck can always not be on your side.
Right. So there are a lot of celebrities who aate hai, they do big shopping as well. And then, when they go back is there because of the customs issue, and that's a completely different subject. But as, आपने business यहाँ पे किया, आपने earn किया UAE में income, then you come under this.
Yeah. So basically it's a definition of UAE sourced income, but the specifics will have to be looked at, in terms of how is that a UAE sourced income and whether it will be liable in terms of the local corporate tax.
So this is technically the initial phase, and this will look into fleshing out a little more in the future, right?
Yeah, like I said, currently the structure of the building has been done through the corporate tax law. Okay, this time it is going to be different, unlike the VAT, because in the VAT what happened was you had an executive regulations which laid down all the provisions which were further explaining the law. But as far as the corporate tax is concerned, what we are seeing is that they will be in the form of cabinet decisions. Okay, so there could be multiple cabinet decisions that will come about. So in terms of that tracking of that, that's where possibly consultants like us can come into use.
Superb. And I think all the professional help आपको UAE पे मिलता ही है.
Absolutely.
और GAR के बारे में I'm sure बहुत, the moment we listen to it or about the word,
just get worried.
हाँ, anti-abuse, and आप suddenly एकदम ये हो जाते हो, चौकन्ने हो जाते हो.
So I've got now I've just coined one phrase. So the GAR से डर.
GAR से डर.
GAR से डर. बीवी से डर वो बात अलग है, बट कार से तो जरूर डर. नाइस. स्टॉक अपडेट, वील बी बैक. आपके पास कोई सवाल 0586861003 ये हमारा व्हाट्सएप नंबर. यू वांट टू आस्क एनीथिंग, सीए गिरीश चंद हमारे साथ है. Tally Solutions.com चंद हमारे साथ है. TallySolutions.com, that's the website. आपको अगर और जानना है about Tally Solutions, they are the ones who bring to you The amazing expertise, the amazing knowledge every Monday and Friday 9 से 10 के बीच.
The Journal on Daybreak. The latest share market, stock market news and updates on Talk 100.3.
इंडिया, यूएई और सऊदी मार्केट्स पे एक नजर डालते हैं क्या चल रहा है इस वक्त. निफ्टी 50 is down by 0.26%, trading at 17,865.45. Bank Nifty is up by 0.20%, trading at 41,637.25. Sensex is down by 0.18%, trading at 60,694. ADX is up by 0.03%, trading at 10,010.64. DFM is up by 0.84%, 3,445.70. And Tadawul is down by 0.91%, trading at 10,412.160.
Let's take a closer look at the US stock market. Dow Jones is down by 0.73%, trading at 33,699.88. S&P 500 is also down by 0.88%, trading at 4,081.50. Nasdaq, on the other hand, is down by 1.02%, trading at 11,789.58. Russell has also lost a bit, trading at 1,915.34. VIX, on the other hand, has gained 5.50, trading at 20.71. You also may be interested in the shares of Tesla, currently appreciated by 3%, trading at $6.03. Also, Amazon.com has lost a bit, about 1.81%, trading at $1.81. And that was the update for the US stock markets.
When I wake up here. This is Daybreak with Vivek Sanil and Muriel Desar. Talk 100.3.
फ्राइडे आ गया है, वीकेंड आ गया है, लेकिन आपको गार से डरना ज़रूरी है. और ऐसे मैं नहीं, सीए गिरीश चंद जी ने कहा, ही इज़ अ टैली कंप्लायंस मेस्ट्रो. और क्यों डरना चाहिए इन द फर्स्ट प्लेस? लॉट ऑफ पीपल आर ट्राइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड, क्योंकि समझना, बिकॉज इज कम्प्लीटली न्यू फॉर सो मैनी बिजनेसेस. देयर इज़ एन एक्सपर्टीज, यू नो, आप है और भी बहुत सारे इंटरेस्टिंग प्रोफाइल्स है यहाँ पे. बट लॉट ऑफ पीपल नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस फर्स्ट रादर देन worrying about GAR. You think so?
Yeah, it's just a phrase that I coined, so it's not that you need to...
No, I'm not holding you onto it. But I think anti-abuse rule and, evasion, I think that's something, it'll come later on after 5-6 years is what I feel.
Yeah, but, like we say, you need to be aware of it today. Right. Okay. What tends to happen is that if you say that I'll do I'll think of it later on, you might take actions today, okay, which could have an implications for you later on.
Knowingly, unknowingly.
Knowingly, unknowingly. See, I will give you examples of VAT as such, right? Okay. So a lot of the guys, they have done transactions on the VAT front, right? Where, a very simple case of where a transaction should not be treated as zero rated. Okay, they have treated it as zero rated. Okay, now when it comes to review by the authorities, they know exactly the areas which have to be kind of looked at. So definitely zero rated are looked at, and what would happen is that you would have to reverse those transactions. And whenever you are doing a reversing, and when you are doing a reversing across years, the implications are big, right? So that is where the element is coming that, yes, you need to be aware and maybe, not be in the fear psychosis, but whatever decisions you're taking, you need to ensure that they are backed by proper commercial rationale. They are within the frames of the law. So that is something that you need to do. And it is better to kind of start it today, right? Since the authorities have promptly done it before the corporate tax is applicable, right? So it is also, imperative on the taxpayer to be aware of, that such a provisions are there and to act accordingly.
So what should a business not do so that this anti-abuse rule is invoked? So, it's a huge list.
Yeah, it's a huge list, and like we said, the whole thing is subjective. Okay, so the way to look at it is when you are deciding to do something, okay,
don't do.
Don't do. But ensure that that particular thing is not with the sole purpose of corporate tax abuse. Yeah. And whenever, if it is, you also have to weigh, okay, what are you gaining by that? And is it really worth going that route? Okay, because sometimes we are wanting to save the small dirhams or
And
in
it's
the
not-
thousands or 10,000s.
And it's not today. It could be after 5 years this could come, or this has a time limit.
Yeah, that's a good question. So primarily, what tends to happen is that normally the statute limit is 5 years from the end of the tax year, right? But whenever there is an element of tax evasion, and that is what this is primarily trying to avoid.
Correct.
Whenever there is an element of tax evasion, the period is extended to almost up to 15 years.
Amazing.
So
15 साल तक आप law के नजर में रहोगे.
No, but we all know the repercussions of not doing things, correctly or not doing things according to the law. Are there any benefits for the employers? I mean, or are there any benefits for the businesses?
from the perspective of GAR or generally as corporate
Both.
tax?
Just
as
corporate
such?
tax, GAR, everything. I mean, because we're discussing everything on the go, so yeah.
So unfortunately, yes, when you look at the corporate tax, the straight there is an impact of 9% on your bottom line. Okay, so that's the, I don't know whether it's a good news or what, but right. So that's something which is there. Okay, now knowing that reality that yes, there is a corporate tax which is applicable. Obviously, then you need to start planning from a perspective of seeing that yes, my 2024 income is down by 10%. What do I need to do in terms of if I were to maintain the same level of profitability?
Correct.
So which means that either you're looking at possibly the increased sales or you're looking at is are there any wasteful expenditures that we have so we can cut down on that. So these are now the businesses will have to relook at their models also.
Right. Oh, great. I mean, we've got a complete rundown today from CA Girish Chand on, corporate tax, on GAR, and a new terminology for a lot of people who don't understand.
Correct.
And I hope they don't get scared of the term.
No, but he's saying that, GAR se dar.
You're
And
quoting him.
you want to know more about, because Tally Solutions come up with amazing software, solutions as well. So tallysolutions.com, that's the website. And is there anything more that we need to know about Tally Solutions?
So primarily, I think they have been in the forefront. Okay, so generally, when we, at least my experience with them, maybe more than some decades, yeah.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
What
so,
amazing, 10 years.
yeah, so I kept only to it. I didn't define, decades could be also having an S after that.
Wow.
So primarily, I think one thing which I must say is that they have always been innovative, right,
Okay.
in terms of the software that they develop, right, and whenever the compliances are there, right, they have been at the forefront. And it is not just about introducing the compliances in their systems, but it is also creating the awareness, and that's where I give them the credit that, with developing something like a compliance maestro, right, where you have basically a show like this, you have basically panel discussions, you have live shows, okay, and you have various compliance maestros addressing on various topics. So it's also increasing the general awareness as far as the compliance is concerned, so which is really creditable.
Superb. So tallysolutions.com, that's the website. Tally Prime, उनका blockbuster software है जो आपको ज़रूर try करना चाहिए.
And it definitely comes in hand for all of you seeking accounting or, advice, or seeking any advices and you require a CA to assist you. They have a team, they have an entourage to help you with all your needs.
How can people get in touch with you, Girish Chand ji?
So I can be reached on my basically mobile number 050.
Are you sure you're giving a mobile number? Because you might get a lot of calls.
That's okay.
050?
That's part of 552
Okay.
80
Okay.
79.
Okay.
And please send me calls on corporate tax and VAT only. Right. Or my email ID Girish GIRISH.Chand CHAND at mcagulf.com.
Amazing. On the other hand, you can also follow Tally Solutions. They are available on Instagram at TallyMeena and Facebook at TallyMeena again. YouTube, Tally Solutions Middle East for your one-stop solutions for all your accounting problems and queries and anything to do with tax, where to get to,
So tallysolutions.com. Thank you, Girish ji. A pleasure. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much. Thank you both of you all
Thank you.
for the engaging discussion.
The countdown is on as the finale of the DP World IoT 20 gets near. Watch the action live as the Gulf Giants, Desert Vipers, My Emirates and Dubai Capitals move into the qualifiers. Top international superstars set the pace with high-octane qualifiers on the 8th to the 10th and the finals on the 12th of February. Plus, a fun-filled family carnival and, of course, the best cricket action at the Dubai International Stadium. Tickets from 20 dirhams and free entry for the kids. Don't miss the DP World IoT 20 finale. Book now at tickets.ilt20.ae.
Daybreak with Vivek Sanil and Muriel Desar.
You know everything about me.
Talk 100.3.
बस फ्राइडे हो गया, वीकेंड आ गया है, हमारे निकलने का टाइम. लेकिन कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स की हम बात कर रहे थे तो एक अटेंशन सारे बिजनेस ओनर्स के लिए. टेक कंट्रोल ऑफ योर टैक्सेस विद स्पाइसर पेगलर, योर टैक्स पार्टनर. उनका टीम है ऑफ एक्सपर्ट्स और हैंडल करेंगे आपके सारे टैक्स रिव्यूज, टैक्स प्रिपरेशन, टैक्स रिक्वायरमेंट्स, freeing your time to focus on growing your business. So 10 साल का experience है. Spicer Pegler is known for delivering personalized, accurate and reliable services. Spicer Pegler is a leading finance consultation firm established with offices in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Sharjah in UAE. And if the new corporate tax worries you and you have queries, feel free to sign up for a free 30-minute consultation with their experts. Log on कीजिए उनके वेबसाइट पे, रजिस्टर कीजिए, चूज कीजिए स्पाइसर पेगलर फॉर ऑल योर फाइनेंशियल कंसल्टेशन, अकाउंटिंग, टैक्सेशन, बुक कीपिंग, CFO सर्विसेज एंड मोर. spicerpegler.com. क्या आ रहा है नेक्स्ट?
आई थिंक घर जाने का वक्त.
तुम तो इधर ही हो, तुम तो BNI आवर कर रहे हो.
यहीं पे हूँ and I'm going to be hosting the BNI hour that is going to begin at about 11 o'clock. Post that at 12 we have business updates coming in. Also 12:30 my show Mamma Mia with me Muriel, where I talk to women of different fields, in different fields rather, women, empowerment from the very word go. Moving forward, you also have the star-studded boys, like I like to call them, the duos, Neil Oja and Lachlan Kitchen with TSB, that is Talk, Sports and Business, all lined up right up from 3 to 8 in the evening.
और वीकेंड पे एक नया शो स्टार्ट हो रहा है. इट्स कॉल्ड फैमिली मैटर्स. मैं और म्यूरियल करेंगे, तो ये आप जरूर सुनिएगा. एंड बहुत सारी चीजें लाइंड अप है. म्यूजिक भी बहुत अच्छा आप सुनेंगे वीकेंड पे.
Amazing. Coke Studios, smooth hits, it's all lined up for you so that you can have a chilled out weekend.
Have a great weekend. See you on Monday. Take care and do whatever you want.
Okay. What?
Talk 100.3.
Rescue workers are making a final push to find survivors of the earthquakes that have destroyed parts of Turkey and Syria. More than 20,000 people are known to have died, while thousands more remain unaccounted for. British teams are helping with relief efforts in freezing temperatures.